I speak to you today with feelings of profound sorrow.
The Privy Council chamber was prepared. The papers were arranged, and Britain's most senior advisors were already moving into position when King Charles suddenly stopped. Across the corridor, standing quietly among those waiting to enter, was a man who had no authorized reason to be there. Charles recognized him instantly, not as a court official, but as Camilla's secret advisor. Seconds later, the king canceled the entire meeting. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Charles had entered expecting control. His private secretary walked beside him with the attendance list. Every name checked and every position approved. The Privy Council, the formal body of senior advisors who support the sovereign in key constitutional decisions, had been summoned to consider a package involving royal appointments, household access, and revised advisory responsibilities around the monarch. That made every person in the corridor important. It also made one unapproved face impossible to ignore. The king slowed, then stopped completely. Sir Adrian Vale stood among accredited officials, as though he belonged there, close enough to the chamber doors to make the breach feel deliberate. Adrian had advised Camilla on reputation, influence, and household strategy, but he held no official place in a constitutional meeting. Charles removed his glasses and fixed him with a stare that emptied the corridor of sound. "Who gave you permission to stand here?" he asked. Adrian did not answer at once. That hesitation changed everything. The monarch did not raise his voice. Yet the restraint in his tone carried more danger than anger. He turned to the officers by the entrance and ordered the doors closed before anyone could take a seat. Senior counselors froze. His secretary lowered the papers. Adrian remained still, but the certainty in his face had vanished. Camilla waited in an adjoining room, expecting the meeting to begin. An aide entered and told her it had been canceled. She first looked confused, then alert when she heard that Charles had personally identified Adrian in the line. The Queen asked what he had been carrying. The answer struck harder than the cancellation. Charles had seen a slim red folder beneath Adrian's arm, marked with Camilla's private household seal. The folder appeared on no official list and had never been cleared for the chamber. He ordered it secured, then demanded the attendance record and every amendment made that morning. The counselors were escorted away in silence, but the danger remained behind locked doors. The meeting had been stopped, but the real shock was not that Adrian Vale had appeared. It was that both Charles and Camilla understood exactly what his presence could expose. Behind the closed doors of the royal residence, the cancelled meeting became something far more personal than a breach of protocol. Charles saw an intrusion into the authority of the crown. Camilla saw the possible destruction of a relationship she had relied upon for years. And Sir Adrian Vale, standing alone without the protection of ceremony, realized that one brief appearance in a palace corridor had placed him between a king and queen already struggling to trust one another. Camilla sat at her writing desk, one hand gripping the edge of a handwritten note while a cup of tea cooled beside her. Adrian had served as a discreet political and reputational strategist, helping her through public criticism, family disputes, and arguments over how much influence her household should hold. Charles had tolerated that private advice when it concerned charitable work or public messaging. But the Privy Council, the formal body of senior advisors involved in important matters of state, belonged to a different world entirely. The Queen felt exposed, but something darker troubled her. Adrian had appeared without warning. He had placed himself in a line of authorized officials, carried a folder bearing her household seal, and allowed everyone watching to believe he acted with her approval. She had trusted him to protect her position. Now she wondered whether he had used that trust to create power of his own. Charles entered without an aide. He placed the confiscated red folder on the desk between them and remained standing. The king did not accuse her. He did not raise his voice. He simply asked whether she had known Adrian would be there. Camilla looked at the folder before meeting his eyes, and the pause wounded him more than an immediate denial would have. She admitted that she had asked Adrian to review possible household changes. The Queen insisted she had never told him to attend the meeting, never authorized him to speak in her name, and never approved that folder for official use. Yet her careful wording unsettled Charles. She answered what he asked, but not what he feared. The monarch began to suspect that she knew how far Adrian intended to go, even if she had never directly ordered him forward. Adrian faced questioning in another room. He claimed that someone had given him a verbal invitation while speaking with the Queen's confidence. The strategist repeated the phrase twice, but refused to identify the person until he was shown the official attendance record. His resistance made the breach feel planned rather than reckless. Charles ordered all 3 accounts compared against private correspondence, access logs, and handwritten notes. One contradiction could turn a painful marital dispute into a constitutional scandal. Yet the deeper danger did not begin in that corridor, because weeks earlier one private encounter had given Adrian the confidence to believe the palace doors would open for him. The cancelled meeting had not been caused by a sudden misunderstanding. Its true beginning lay 3 weeks earlier, during a private dinner at Clarence's house when Camilla, frustrated by growing resistance inside the palace, allowed Sir Adrian Vale into a conversation he was never meant to hear. One sentence spoken across a candlelit table changed everything. Adrian left that evening believing he had been given a mission, and Charles would later recognize that dinner as the moment trust began to fracture. Tension had already been building around a proposed restructuring of royal household responsibilities. The plan would decide which advisors could reach senior decision-makers and who would be allowed near the most sensitive royal discussions. Charles wanted a smaller, tightly controlled circle, because too many informal voices could blur authority. Camilla feared the opposite. She believed fewer independent advisors would leave her trapped inside a system loyal first to the king and Prince William. The Queen received the draft plan before dinner and read it with rising anger. Several roles linked to her household had been reduced, while access to major decisions had narrowed. By the time Adrian joined her, she was no longer speaking with patience. She was speaking from fear. "I need someone in that room who understands what they are trying to remove from me," she told him. Adrian heard more than frustration. The strategist heard permission. He asked whether she wanted him to intervene before the coming privy meeting, but Camilla did not give a direct answer. She did not tell him yes. She also did not tell him to stop. That silence became the space in which his ambition began to grow. Morning brought regret. Camilla sent him a brief private message telling him to wait until everything is settled. She believed the warning was clear enough. Adrian read it differently. To him, it meant delay, not withdrawal. The Queen convinced herself the danger had passed, while he quietly began preparing to act. Adrian later contacted a junior palace liaison and spoke with the confidence of a man who believed his authority had already been granted. He implied that his attendance had approval from the highest level. The liaison, frightened by his connection to Camilla and unwilling to challenge him, added his name to a preliminary access line without formal clearance. Charles studied the recovered correspondence and understood the full chain at last. One angry sentence had become an assumed command. One frightened employee had opened a door. One private advisor had turned uncertainty into authority. Armed with the messages and the memory of that dinner, Charles summoned Camilla, not as his wife seeking reassurance, but as the sovereign demanding the truth. There were no aides in the room when Charles confronted Camilla. No private secretaries, no courtiers, and no carefully prepared language to soften what had happened. The king placed Adrian's message beside the sealed folder and asked one direct question. "Did you send him?" Camilla looked at the evidence, then at the man she had stood beside for years, and understood that every answer now carried 2 consequences, one for their marriage and another for the crown. Charles had chosen a small private sitting room instead of an official office because he wanted honesty before the matter became a formal investigation. The papers between them included Adrian's follow-up message, his exchange with the junior liaison, and a draft proposal that would have expanded access for Camilla's preferred advisors. That proposal mattered because access inside the royal household meant influence over information, decisions, and the people allowed closest to the sovereign. Camilla denied authorizing Adrian to attend. She said the strategist had acted on his own and had twisted a private conversation into something larger. Charles listened, but he returned to the words spoken at dinner. The Queen finally admitted that she wanted Adrian to defend her interests. She had feared being pushed aside, yet she insisted she never expected him to cross a constitutional boundary or enter a privy meeting, the formal gathering where senior advisors support the monarch on important matters of state. The king's anger began to fade, but the hurt beneath it became harder to hide. He pushed the papers away and told her that Adrian's ambition was not the deepest wound. The real betrayal was her belief that she needed a hidden representative inside a meeting held under his authority. Camilla looked down, then stood as though the conversation had become too painful to continue. She reached the door before Charles stopped her with a single sentence. "Leaving now will answer the question you refuse to face." The Queen froze. Slowly, she turned back. Her composure broke as she admitted that her fear had not begun with Adrian. Camilla revealed through that private conversation that she believed certain courtiers, and possibly William, were quietly building a future structure that would leave her visible, but powerless, if Charles's health declined. The king heard the fear in her voice, but he also heard something more dangerous. Someone had convinced her that isolation was already being planned. Charles ended the meeting by stating that Adrian would be removed immediately. Yet Camilla's claim forced him to look beyond one advisor and one reckless decision. The argument had exposed the marriage, but the next decision would expose the balance of power, because Charles now had to determine who would control access to the crown itself. Canceling the meeting was an act of instinct. What Charles did next was an act of power. By sunrise, palace access records were frozen, advisory credentials were suspended, and every informal channel into the royal household was placed under review. Yet the king's greatest problem was not removing one secret strategist. It was deciding whether Camilla's private network had grown because she sought influence, or because the palace had failed to make her feel secure inside the institution she represented. Charles understood exactly where his authority began. The sovereign controls access to the royal household, approves those permitted to advise him, and determines who may enter sensitive official discussions. That power mattered, because the Privy Council, the formal body of senior advisors who support the monarch in important matters of state, could not be quietly reshaped by a consort, a courtier, or a private strategist. Adrian's attempted entry had challenged procedure, but it had also challenged the king himself. The monarch met Prince William in the library and placed the revised household plan before him. He asked whether the prince had supported measures designed to reduce Camilla's influence. William chose his words carefully. He admitted that he wanted stronger boundaries around constitutional access, but denied seeking her humiliation or exclusion. The future king said the palace needed clarity, not revenge. William noticed the exhaustion in his father's face and lowered his voice. Protecting the crown, he said, did not require punishing the woman beside him. Charles heard the compassion in that warning and was moved by it. Yet Camilla's secrecy still cut deeply. The king could accept fear. What he could not accept was fear being turned into hidden authority. Charles returned to his desk and picked up the pen prepared for Adrian's dismissal. He hesitated for several seconds. Signing the order would end the strategist's access, but it would also make the betrayal impossible to dismiss as a misunderstanding. The monarch finally lowered the pen and signed. One name vanished from the palace. The consequences did not. The sealed folder revealed something even more troubling. Adrian had drafted language for an unofficial consort advisory channel, meaning a private route through which selected figures could brief Camilla before sensitive royal decisions reached her through proper channels. Such a system would have created influence without accountability and placed private loyalty beside constitutional authority. William read the wording and immediately saw the danger. Charles saw something else. The language was too polished, too precise, and too familiar with palace procedure to have come from Adrian alone. Adrian had lost his access, but the document he carried suggested a larger design, and as the first dismissals began, the palace discovered that the damage had already spread beyond one man. By midday, the cancellation could no longer be contained as a routine scheduling change. Senior counselors wanted explanations. Household staff whispered about a forbidden folder. Camilla's office received notice that all outside advisory arrangements were suspended pending review. The Queen read the order twice, placed it flat on the table, and asked everyone to leave. When the door closed, she remained seated in complete silence, confronting the new reality that Charles had chosen the institution over her private circle. The cancelled counselors were told that the meeting would be reconvened under revised security arrangements. That mattered because tighter access rules confirmed the disruption had involved more than a diary change. It had been a serious breach. Palace staff linked to unofficial advisory work were temporarily reassigned, while the junior liaison who placed Adrian in the line was questioned privately, but not publicly blamed. Camilla felt exposed even though the review had not yet reached the press. She removed a planned engagement briefing from her desk and told her aide that she would not appear before cameras until she understood where she stood. The Queen had spent years building public acceptance. Now one reckless act threatened to reduce all that progress to suspicion. Adrian received the dismissal order at his London office. He read the final paragraph, loosened his tie, and waited for a call that never came. Camilla had not intervened. She had not defended him. The strategist finally understood that the relationship he believed protected him had already collapsed. Adrian acted once more before surrendering his devices. He sent Camilla a final message. "They wanted you afraid. I only acted because you already were." The words angered her, but they also landed with painful force. The Queen hated his manipulation, yet she could not deny that fear had opened the door he walked through. The junior liaison then gave a documented account of the conversations that led to Adrian's access. During questioning, the employee revealed that he had referred to a future emergency arrangement. The phrase suggested that the strategist expected Camilla to need independent influence if Charles became temporarily unable to fulfill every duty. That language changed the investigation completely. Succession meant the lawful order in which the crown passes, while regency meant a temporary system allowing another royal to perform duties when the sovereign cannot. Adrian's words now touched both. They raised questions about William's future authority and whether someone had been planning around the king's health. The palace had begun removing the machinery of secrecy, but the emotional crisis could not be solved through dismissals, and one private meeting would soon change the direction of the entire conflict. Late that evening, Charles asked William to remain after every official had left. There were no folders between them and no advisors shaping the conversation. The king admitted that he felt deceived, while the prince acknowledged that Camilla's fears had not appeared from nowhere. In that unguarded room, father and son faced a choice: use the scandal to strip her influence completely, or rebuild the boundaries of the monarchy without turning a private failure into permanent personal destruction. Charles explained that Camilla had grown afraid of being pushed aside as William assumed more visible responsibilities. The future transition mattered, because the prince's expanding role would naturally bring more influence over royal planning, public duties, and access to the sovereign. The king also understood that constitutional clarity, the clear separation of official authority from private influence, had become essential after Adrian's attempted entry. William listened without interrupting. He told his father that his concern had never been revenge. The prince wanted stronger rules around sensitive decisions, but he also believed any new arrangement had to protect Camilla's dignity. She could not be allowed to build hidden channels into the crown, yet she could not be treated as though one failure had erased her place beside the monarch. Charles admitted that he was tempted to remove every independent advisor around her. The betrayal still felt too close. William warned that total isolation would confirm her worst fear and might drive her toward even greater secrecy. The future king understood that control could create obedience for a time, but trust could not survive without some measure of freedom. William then spoke with painful honesty. He remembered how pressure from the institution had damaged earlier royal relationships, turning private fear into public conflict. Boundaries should protect a family, not make one person feel surrounded, he told his father. Charles heard more than advice. He heard a warning shaped by history. Silence followed. The king picked up Adrian's proposed advisory plan, folded it once, then folded it again. William watched as his father placed the document into the fire. The act destroyed the secret structure without destroying Camilla's position. It was rejection, but not abandonment. Charles and William agreed on a replacement. Camilla could retain a transparent personal team for charitable work and public duties, but no private advisor would enter constitutional discussions or claim authority through her name. Every role would be recorded. Every boundary would be clear. The king decided to offer the arrangement himself. Her answer would determine whether the crisis ended in reconciliation or a formal division of their royal responsibilities. The new boundaries were clear on paper, but they would mean nothing until Camilla chose whether to accept them, and Charles approached her door, carrying neither accusation nor command. When the cancelled meeting became public, the story exploded far beyond palace walls. Broadcasters interrupted scheduled coverage, newspaper editors rebuilt their front pages, and crowds gathered outside Buckingham Palace, searching for signs of division. Yet the image that defined the day was not Adrian Vale being removed or Charles canceling the meeting. It was Camilla, stepping from a royal car beside the king, composed but visibly tense, as the world tried to decide whether she had been forgiven or contained. The palace moved quickly. Officials released a short statement confirming that a privy meeting had been postponed after an unauthorized person entered the controlled access process. The Privy Council, the formal body of senior advisors who support the monarch on important matters of state, depended on strict security because access carried influence, trust, and constitutional weight. The statement also confirmed that advisory protocols were under review, but it carefully avoided accusing Camilla of directing Adrian's actions. Morning brought a sharper judgment. A major London newspaper appeared with closed council doors across its front page, and one brutal headline: "The King saw him and stopped everything." Reporters held copies above the crowd outside Buckingham Palace, while television cameras captured the growing public reaction. The words turned a private security breach into a national drama about marriage, authority, and the limits of royal influence. Charles became the center of an uncomfortable debate. One television broadcaster described the crisis as a test of whether the king could defend constitutional boundaries without publicly humiliating his wife. The question spread quickly. Some praised his decisiveness. Others wondered whether Camilla had been protected by silence while Adrian carried the blame. Camilla faced that judgment during a scheduled appearance beside her husband. She paused before leaving the car, aware that every expression would be examined. Charles extended his hand without speaking. The Queen hesitated, then took it. The gesture was controlled and brief, but it gave the public the sign they had been waiting for. The marriage had not collapsed. Adrian received no such protection. Palace sources disclosed through a formal briefing that he had been permanently barred from royal properties. They also confirmed that no unofficial consort advisory channel would be created, closing the secret path he had tried to establish in Camilla's name. The united appearance calmed the immediate speculation, but it did not erase the betrayal. Charles and Camilla had shown the world that they could stand together. The cameras recorded unity, but only the private verdict between king and queen could determine whether that unity was genuine, fragile, or merely ceremonial. The final resolution did not come through another dismissal, another investigation, or another royal decree. It came when Charles returned to Camilla with a written framework and placed it before her not as a punishment, but as a boundary neither of them could cross again. She read every page in silence. Then she signed her name, accepting that private loyalty could never override constitutional authority. In that moment, the crisis ended, but their marriage entered a more honest and disciplined chapter. Camilla studied the agreement carefully before speaking. It separated her personal and charitable advisors from constitutional meetings, privy matters, succession planning, and official decisions surrounding the sovereign. The Privy Council, the formal body of senior advisors who support the monarch on important matters of state, would remain protected from all unofficial influence. The new rules mattered because they closed every hidden route Adrian had tried to use. Charles had not come to isolate her. The king approved a transparent advisory structure for her public work, allowing trusted staff to support her charities, speeches, and engagements. Every role would be recorded, every responsibility would be clear, and no strategist could again claim power through a private conversation or an implied command. The Queen finally admitted what fear had done to her judgment. She told Charles during their private conversation that she had tolerated Adrian's ambition because she believed the monarchy might slowly erase her role. She had watched William's responsibilities grow and convinced herself that silence from the palace meant removal was already beginning. Instead of asking her husband for protection, she allowed suspicion to speak for her. Charles listened without defending himself. He acknowledged that institutional changes had moved forward without enough explanation, and that his silence had allowed uncertainty to deepen. The monarch did not excuse Camilla's secrecy, but he accepted responsibility for failing to recognize how abandoned she had begun to feel. Camilla signed the agreement, then removed Adrian's number from her private telephone. She handed the device to Charles for a brief moment before taking it back. The gesture did not erase the betrayal. It showed that trust was being offered again, but under terms neither of them could misunderstand. Adrian remained permanently excluded from royal properties. The junior liaison was retrained rather than sacrificed. The cancelled meeting was reconvened successfully, and the secret advisory channel was destroyed before it could take root. Charles had proved that the crown could not be entered through marriage, friendship, fear, or private influence. Yet his refusal to publicly destroy Camilla proved something equally important. Authority without compassion might have protected the institution while breaking the family. The doors of the Privy Chamber eventually reopened, but they reopened under a truth no one inside the palace could ignore again. Love could stand beside the crown, but it could never secretly speak in its place. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.